प्लीज मेरी बात तो सुनो। नो, ऐसा नहीं होता है।
खड़गे जी।
Yes.
खड़गे जी।
I will allow.
खड़गे जी।
I will allow all of you. I will allow.
मैंने आपको एंटी फार्मर नहीं कहा। मैं पूछता हूं, जनप्रतिनिधि का कोई अदर अंडमान निकोबार में है? नहीं है। सुनने वाला कोई नहीं है।
Well, the death of farmer Gajendra Singh in the national capital yesterday, rocking parliament today. The Congress and other opposition parties seeking farm loan waivers and higher support prices, but the blame game over the suicide has continued unabated. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us. It's not a very good evening here on India Business Hour. Joining us also is Surbhi from our Mumbai studios. Surbhi, it's tough right now in rural India.
Absolutely, Shireen. Life for the Indian farmer is only getting tougher with the weather gods not really being on his side of late. However, the RBI is trying to do its bit to ease some of that pressure, and we'll talk about that. Here are the headlines this Thursday evening. RBI steps in to tackle the agrarian crisis, mandates banks to issue 8% of their loans to small and marginal farmers, also adds renewable energy, social infrastructure and incremental exports to the priority sector list.
Advice had been rendered to the organizers that they should hold their rally at some other place.
Delhi police blames AAP leaders for the farmers' suicide at its rally, charges them with abetment. AAP demands a probe by the New Delhi magistrate. The Delhi police commissioner says no.
A ray of hope for foreign investors. The government may look at exempting debt and dividend income from minimum alternate tax. A clarification amendment to the finance bill is also likely. That's an exclusive.
Subramaniam Swamy rakes up a new controversy, writes a letter to the Prime Minister seeking a probe into the SpiceJet deal, asks for clarity on Ajay Singh's source of funds, also questions the decision by the regulator to waive an open offer by the new promoter.
HDFC Bank reports a steady set of fourth quarter numbers. Profit and income jump over 20%. Provisions spike sequentially, but the rise is not alarming.
RBI tightens the rules on banks to declare a borrower as a willful defaulter. Banks will now have to refer each case to a committee before taking the final call, but new rules do not apply to promoters.
Stocks across Wall Street and Europe tread with caution as investors digest a whole host of earnings. Facebook, General Motors and Procter & Gamble miss estimates. Pepsi is bang on target.
I do believe that this is a significant development in the life of Madison.
Madison World, Sam Balsara speaks about roping in former Group M executive Vikram Sakhuja and what it means for the company. All of that and more coming up for you in just a bit, but a quick check of the day's trading action. There has been one constant on the Lal Street over the last few trading sessions, and that is volatility. Today, once again, the market saw some wild swings, and then we saw a late slide forcing the bulls on the back foot. The Nifty lost about 30 points, slipping below the 8,400 mark. The Sensex lost over 150 points and shut shop at the lowest point of the day. Mid-caps, though, more resilient today, and that index just about ended in positive territory. That was the story for our market. Let's turn to the currency market, Surabhi.
Yes, Shireen, a pretty weak session and quite a bleak day for the Indian currency. Quite a bad session for the rupee, with the Indian currency closing at three-month lows of 63.32. Strong dollar demand coupled with the weak sentiment in the equity markets pushed the rupee even further lower and pretty much ended at the lows of the day. Shireen?
All right, that's 63.32 for the rupee. But on to the top story this evening. In a bid to tackle the agrarian crisis, the Reserve Bank of India has tweaked the priority sector lending norms. Banks are now mandated to issue 8% of their total loan book to small and marginal farmers. Not just that, RBI has also added renewable energy, social infrastructure and incremental exports to priority sector. Lata joins us now with the details. Lata, how significant are these changes? They've, of course, included some more sectors into the priority sector. And what does this mean now for banks?
Definitely, life becomes easier for banks to some extent. Some of the subcategories have been eased. For instance, the most important thing is direct indirect lending differentiation to agriculture has been removed. The broad rules remain the same. 40% of all the loans given by banks should go to priority sector. And within that, 18% should go, that is 18% of your total loans should go to agriculture. Now, within agriculture, there used to be 13.5 to direct agricultural lending, and the remaining could go to indirect. That category has been removed. However, one direct category is there, which is the new one. 8% to small and marginal farmers, which perhaps is very welcome considering the situation that the country finds itself in. The other additions are, as you said, renewable energy, social infrastructure, which until now were not under priority sector at all. The other category that has come in is exports. That is, all exports cannot come as priority sector, but incremental 2% of lending to exporters can be brought under priority sector. The big changes come for the foreign banks with over 20 branches. They had to reach the priority sector limits by 2018. That remains unchanged for weaker sections, agriculture, all those have to be reached. Only the small and marginal farmers, they get time up to 2020 to reach that category, because it's genuinely difficult for them with just say 21 branches or 25 branches. Anything more than 20, reaching out to 8% of small farmers is tough for them, so they get 2 more years. Banks with even less branches, less than 20 branches, also get time to get to their priority sector 40% up until 2020. Those are the concessions given, but other categories remain the same. Educational loan up to 10 lakh, that remains under priority sector. Housing loans under 28 lakh, that remains under priority sector. Those rules have not changed. What has changed is what I am telling you, the small and marginal farmer category, the renewable energy and social infrastructure.
All right, Lata, many thanks for taking us through the details. Joining us now for a quick reaction on the phone line is Vijay Lakshmi Iyer, the Chairman and Managing Director of the Bank of India. Mr. Iyer, appreciate you joining us here on India Business Hour. What does this mean now for a bank like yours, and how significant is the change specifically as far as what the Reserve Bank has now said or revised as far as the PSL norms are concerned for the agri sector?
It's overall a very good move. In fact, it will benefit the bankers. See, the main changes, as you all were just now pointing out, is that the distinction between direct and indirect agriculture has been dispensed with. And what has been added is bank loans to food and agro-processing unit will now be a part of the agriculture loans. And loans of rupees 100 crores per borrower will also be included here. So that is a very welcome move, and it would be easy for the banks to achieve the 18% agricultural advance now. Otherwise, as of now, most of us fall short by about 1.5 to 2%, overall 18%. So this is a good move, an addition is there. And another welcome move is that medium enterprises, social infrastructure with loans up to 5 crore per borrower and renewable energy up to 15 crore per borrower will form part of the PSL, in addition to the existing categories. So this also will aid. What will come as a challenge is this 8% of the ANBC to the small and marginal farmers to be achieved in a phased manner, because they will have land holding up to 1 hectare is actually categorized under marginal farmer, and one who has up to 2 hectare will be categorized as under small farmer. This will be a little bit of a challenge for the bankers.
You preempted my question, Mrs. Iyer, because that's exactly what I was going to ask you. How achievable is that, or how feasible is that going to be? And currently, what is the kind of percentage of your loan portfolio that goes to, for instance, the small and marginal farmer?
We are more or less complying with it, in fact. But then what I want to tell you is this requires a lot of effort, and you should have a distribution channels across. So the private sector banks may be finding it difficult. We have almost 2/3 of our branches in the rural and semi-urban sector, so we'll be able to cater to it. Otherwise, this will definitely be a challenge. Likewise, even the 7.5% of the ANBC, which has been prescribed for micro enterprises also, would be a little bit of a challenge to achieve. But then you have good microfinance institutions who are well entrenched into it, so financing them also would get included under the private sector lending. So that we may be able to do. What is another important deviation which the Reserve Bank has said is, so far hitherto they were doing the evaluation only on an annual basis, but now it will be done on a quarterly basis. So that will actually require that we do it on a sustainable basis, on an average basis, quarter on quarter. So that also we will have to prepare ourselves that we grow, on a sustainable basis. So this also.
I appreciate the fact that you're being candid about the challenges, Mrs. Iyer, but a very quick final question to you, ma'am. And, you know, the country today is talking about the rural distress, the agri-distress. Can you give us some sense at the bank on what you're getting to hear at this point in time? What the quantum of the distress could perhaps be from your bank's perspective?
See, from the bank's perspective, micro enterprises, we have absolutely no issue. We are doing 10% in fact of the ANBs. So we have no issues from the Bank of India's side. Of course, small and marginal farmers, I don't have the statistics right away. I mean, maybe I can tell you tomorrow, but there also we should be able to do it. Overall, there should not be much of a problem for Bank of India.
All right, Ms. Ayar, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you joining us here to explain and decode what the new priority sector lending norms announced by the Reserve Bank this evening mean for banks. Well, speaking of the agri-crisis, Parliament spent the entire day today discussing it, but only after farmer Gajendra Singh committed suicide in the national capital yesterday. The day began with a minute's silence in both houses, but soon after that, the political blame game took centre stage. Home Minister Rajnath Singh has said the Delhi police believes the AAP workers who were present in the rally instigated Gajendra Singh as he was climbing up the tree in which he eventually hung himself. The Congress has demanded a judicial probe into the entire incident. It's also demanded that the government waive off farm loans and increase the procurement made by the Food Corporation of India. Speaking in the Lok Sabha, the Prime Minister has called on political parties to set aside their differences and work together.
हम सब दल कोई भी हो, देश बहुत बड़ा होता है और मैं इस विषय में खुले मन से जो भी सुझाव आए आप जरूर बताइए, अपन को इनको रास्ता निकालने का प्रयास करेंगे। किसान को असहाय नहीं छोड़ सकते, हमने उसके साथ उसके दुख में सहभागी होना है, उसके भविष्य के लिए भी सहभागी होना है और उस संकल्प, आज की चर्चा में से वो संकल्प उभर करके आए, सामूहिक संकल्प उभर करके आए कि हम सब मिलकर के अब हमारे किसानों को हम न मरने दें। मैं इतनी प्रार्थना इस सदन को करता हूं।
पुलिसकर्मियों ने तत्काल इस घटना की जानकारी नियंत्रण कक्ष को दी तथा एक लंबी सीढ़ी युक्त फायर ब्रिगेड वाहन को बुलाया ताकि पेड़ की ऊंची डाली पर बैठे इस व्यक्ति को बचाया जा सके। पुलिस ने नीचे मौजूद लोगों से भी ताली बजाने और नारेबाजी रोकने का बार बार अनुरोध किया, जिससे उस व्यक्ति श्री गजेंद्र सिंह को उत्तेजित होने से रोका जा सके।
जब मीडिया में इतना आया है, आप देखते हैं, और पूरे टीवी में भी आया है, वो रस्सी वो बांधने का आया है, फिर उसके बाद वो हाथ पकड़ के नीचे आने का आया है, गिरने का है। ये सब होने तक आपकी पुलिस क्या कर रही थी?
खास तौर पे जो राहुल जी ने अपनी बात में कहा परसों, यहाँ पे कर्जा माफी का भी समय आ गया है, कर्जा माफी की तरफ भी सरकार देखे। हमारे समय भी हुआ था, इससे बड़ी जो है प्रकृति की मार 100 साल में किसान पे नहीं पड़ी हमारे देश में। तो कर्जा माफी का अगर कोई समय है, सरकार से हम आग्रह करना चाहते हैं कि कर्जा माफी की तरफ सरकार सोचे।
दीपेंद्र जी ने यह जानना चाहा है कि कर्ज माफी के बारे में आप क्या सोच रहे हैं, और इन्होंने दावा किया है कि जब इनकी सरकार थी तो उस समय इन्होंने किसानों का कर्ज माफ किया था। पहली बात तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं, कब माफ हुआ था? चुनावी वर्ष में माफ हुआ था, प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारण माफ नहीं हुआ।
Politics continuing over that very unfortunate suicide. Now, the Delhi police have sent a notice to the AAP rally organizers blaming the volunteers at the venue for instigating Gajendra Singh to commit suicide. Network 18 has accessed details of the FIR copy, which clearly makes out a case of abetment to suicide by AAP workers. The FIR says that policemen were not allowed to carry out their duty. AAP has denied the charges and has asked for a magisterial probe, but the Delhi police has refused to do so.
You see, we always do things which are, we are an instrumentality of rule of law. So if anything is in violation of rule of law, so obviously we have to ignore such requests. The information available had indicated that the number is likely to be more than 10-12,000. So that is why advice had been rendered to the organizers that they should hold their rally at some other place.
गृह मंत्री जी ने कहा कि दिल्ली पुलिस को अपना काम नहीं करने दिया गया, दिल्ली पुलिस को उतारने नहीं दिया गया, जबकि कल ही दिल्ली पुलिस के स्पेशल सीपी श्री मीणा जी ने कहा कि उतारने का काम हमारा नहीं। तो देश के गृह मंत्री जो बोल रहे हैं, दिल्ली पुलिस कुछ और बोल रही है।
So with the suicide now rocking the parliament, what will be the fate of the land bill? Opposition has hardened its stance and has vowed to fight it tooth and nail. Rituparna Bhuyan has been speaking to parliamentarians, cutting across party lines, and here are a couple of them with their views.
This house is not going to run, and this is not the opposition's fault. This is the government trying to bulldoze this land bill and give more pain to the farmers. So they are in a hopeless minority in Rajya Sabha. So they are going to be in big trouble.
Will this opposition unity continue on the land ordinance?
Till death.
I think first of all, we should be very clear that you cannot mix up the two issues. They are two separate issues. The farmer is in distress. Today the country must do something to alleviate his problems. As far as the bill is concerned, that is really a long-term thing which would help the development of the farm sector also. It will provide help to the rural areas, it would provide help to the industry. That's a different aspect altogether. That can be debated. And I think there the government will have to do some give and take with the opposition. But right now we should only focus on somehow saving the Indian farmer.
Well, it's fairly clear, as you just heard there, the land bill will face opposition fire, but the government is confident of pushing ahead with the goods and services tax. Sources say the centre may initiate a discussion by Parliament tomorrow on the constitutional amendment bill to the GST. It's likely to be ratified by lawmakers by the 27th of April. So there's good news for the GST. Hopefully, if it does make it through the budget session of Parliament, we will start the process of rolling out one of India's most ambitious tax reforms. Now, Maharashtra has been one of the worst affected states, with the Yavatmal district alone seeing 24 farmer suicides in the last 3 months. Agriculture Minister Eknath Khadse is under pressure, with the opposition demanding his resignation. Khadse spoke to us just a short while ago to explain the steps that his government is taking to tackle the agrarian crisis in the state.
अभी तक हमने 4,200 करोड़ रुपए दे चुके हैं। एक दूसरा है, हमने करीबन अलग अलग तरीके से 7,000 करोड़ रुपए के अलग अलग ढंग से सब्सिडी जो है कि बिजली के दरों में कटौती में उसमें सब्सिडी हमने दी है। जहां हम लोगों ने किसानों को जो टैक्स भरते खेती का सेस सारा जिसको बोलते उसको माफी कर दी है। जहां कर्जा जो है उसका हमने पुनर्गठन करके उसका इंटरेस्ट का माफ कर दिया है। और किसानों के बच्चे जो पढ़ते हैं उनको फीस लगती है 50,000 60,000 महाराष्ट्र में, तो भी प्राइवेट वगैरह में हमने वो फीस को सहूलत देके वो भी माफ कर दी है। ऐसे अलग ढंग से करीबन 7,000 करोड़ रुपए से अलग अलग सब्सिडी हमने दे के रखी है और 4,000 करोड़ रुपए डायरेक्ट सब्सिडी हमने दी, डायरेक्ट सब्सिडी। केंद्र सरकार से आग्रह किया है कि उसमें मिनिमम इसमें सपोर्ट प्राइस बढ़ाना चाहिए। अगर केंद्र सरकार नहीं भी बढ़ाते हैं तो इस साल हम लोगों ने जो हमारा धान उत्पादक है उसको 50 रुपए देने के ये की है। कपास उत्पादक को भी हम कुछ देने के लिए तैयारी कर रहे हैं, जो हमारे पैसे से देंगे। 600 फार्मर्स ने आत्महत्या की है, ये बात सही है, पर एक है कि ये किसानों ने अलग अलग कारणों से आत्महत्या की है। अलग अलग कारण भी है, वहाँ खाली किसानों ने आत्महत्या अपने खेती के कारण की है ऐसी स्थिति नहीं है। इसमें से करीबन 225 लोग ऐसे हैं जो खेती के कारण उनको प्राकृतिक आपत्ति के कारण नुकसान जो हुआ है उनको हमने हमारी ओर से उनके परिवारजनों को मदद भी की है और बाकी लोगों की हम छानबीन कर दी। और ये आंकड़ा जो आज 600 का कांग्रेस सरकार बता रही है, हमारी तो मांगे तो हम तो 4 महीने हो गए सरकार में आए हैं, एक दिन का तो सवाल ही नहीं है।
Well, joining us now is Dr. M. Swaminathan, the chairman of the National Commission of Farmers 2006 and former member of the Rajya Sabha, also of course known as the father of the Green Revolution. Dr. Swaminathan, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. While the political blame game continues in Parliament, sir, the agrarian crisis is not new to India. Farmer suicides, unfortunately, not new to India. If I could start by asking you, in the immediate term, in the short term, what is it that the government can do, both at the central level as well as the state level, to alleviate the pain? And then we'll talk about a holistic solution, a long-term solution. But in the short and the immediate term, what is it that you would like to prescribe to the government?
There are a number of issues which are related to the crisis in agriculture. We are going through one of the most serious crises in post-independent India because a whole set of factors have joined together. climatic factors, climatic aberrations, ecological factors, degradation of the soil, pollution of the groundwater and so on. Economic factors, look at West Bengal. Farmers are committing suicide because they have produced a good crop of potato. We said the sin they produce a good crop of potato, the prices of potato have crashed and they are in distress. So economic factors, ecological factors, all of them are responsible. But there is many things which can be done. And Capital, the India Meteorological Department has stated that this year's rainfall will be poor. So you will have to start preparing for an unfavorable monsoon strategy. What do you do under those conditions?
I'll come to that in just a second, sir. But in terms of the thing that there is no time to relax on this issue, you're absolutely right. But if I could ask you, sir, because, every time there is this matter raised in Parliament, political parties stand up and ask for agri-debt waivers. While it's nice to sit in television studios and talk about the moral hazard as far as agri-debt waivers are concerned, and we heard and saw a lot of that happen when the UPA had announced an agri-debt waiver. But do you believe that at this point in time that is something that the government ought to consider?
The government ought to consider not a uniformly waiving of loans and so on, but there are people small farmers without irrigation facilities, entirely depend upon rainfall, and it is important, particularly in the case of those farmers which have committed suicide, there has to be waiving off the loans, because how will the widow pay the loans when the husband has not been able to pay and has taken his life? I think we can't generalize. Too much generalization is difficult. We'll have to disaggregate the problem to a number of components, where the problem lies in terms of purely rainfall and irrigation, where the problem lies in terms of markets, the collapse of the markets and the low prices. Look at now Kerala, there are rubber farmers who are suffering because the rubber price is low, since we are importing. So either the import-export policies or input-output pricing policies, these are exceedingly important to decide the fate of farmers.
Do you think immediate intervention is required as far as the support prices are concerned, sir? Because, we've been talking to people, and one of the key concerns is that land holdings are very, very small, plus your productivity or your yield is also abysmally low. So given that situation, the farmer is really caught in a trap and hence would require larger support from the government. Do you believe that the time has now come perhaps for much more radical intervention as far as support prices are concerned, given the current situation?
Well, I don't know, because I think the problem is a lack of consistent policy towards farming. Although I chair the National Commission on Farmers, we have given very detailed report what all needs to be done in terms of credit, in terms of insurance, credit-linked insurance, in terms of marketing, in terms of pricing, in terms of procurement. Today there is both a void in policy and a lot of confusion about policies with the change in government.
Who do you blame for this confusion and the void, sir?
Purchased or not, how much procurement.
Who do you blame for the confusion and void, Dr. Swaminathan? As you pointed out, and I know that you've given.
See, unfortunately, I blame it. I blame it because there is no pan-political consensus on farmers. This is not a party politics. This is a human affair. It's a human being. And we are all, you and I are living today because of farmers. I always say the sunlight, the green plant and the farmer are the three real hosts of all of us. We can do without anything, but not without food. Therefore, there has to be a political commitment to farmers and farming. At the moment, it is all in words, sympathy, and photo opportunity and so on.
Do you believe that enough was done in the budget, sir? Because the finance minister had talked about one national market as far as agriculture is concerned. Enhancing the credit limit to agriculture was something that the budget has also talked about. Do you believe that is enough, or that's really the wrong prescription? Or it's not it doesn't understand the problem well enough?
See, there's a lot there's a lot of talk, but very little substance. For example, very high figures of credit are given. If you break it down, who gets the credit? It's all large companies, fertilizer companies and others get the credit. They are all shown on agriculture. But if you break it down to those farmers, small farmers who have been able to get credit, it's a very small percentage of the total amount.
The land bill is something that this government has made very, very clear it intends to push forward. I don't know if the events that unfortunately took place 24 hours ago will get this government to back down or change its mind as far as the land bill is concerned. But the land bill in its current avatar, do you believe that the government must reconsider, at least as far as the social impact assessment is concerned and the consent clause is concerned?
I believe that the government, of course, as I said, the Prime Minister talks about the importance of farming. They all realize farming is our most important enterprise, private sector enterprise. When we talk about private sector enterprise, we only talk about big companies and so on. But in real terms, in human terms, in numerical terms, the number of people involved, farming is the largest private sector enterprise in this country. While the industrial private enterprise gets a lot of attention in terms of policy, this the largest private sector enterprise, namely farming, hardly receives any attention at all. And whatever attention has been given, like our report to the Farmers Commission, they are yet to be considered seriously or implemented. I think we are going to pay a very heavy price, because in the 60s we had the PL 480 and so on. Today there is no PL 480 in the world. We'll have to fend for ourselves. And if you don't have produced food enough for the population, I don't know what will happen.
Well, the situation is dire. Dr. M. S. Swaminathan, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. I know that your committee or your commission had listed out a series of steps and measures which you had prescribed, at least as far as alleviating the pain in the agriculture sector is concerned. Unfortunately, a lot of that continues to be only on paper. Appreciate your time here on CNBC TV 18. Well, on that note, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Remember, this issue will continue to push the government on a back foot as far as the land bill is concerned. But tomorrow is a crucial day. The Lok Sabha could initiate the discussion on the goods and services tax. Of course, you've got emphasis numbers and all the market actions. So stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. We'll be right there.